Okay, to make a start, for those that don't know, I think a lot of the people I do know, but my name is Denise Langdon. I'm one of the board members with the council, and this is an initiative. I think everyone's Zooming these days. Zoom is the big buzzword. And apart from wanting a haircut like everyone else, we're all looking forward to getting back to playing our golf. So this was trying to keep the industry involved with all the sectors that we represent as a council. There is representatives from all areas of the industry on the council, and they're all pretty much linked in this morning. Carl Fenton represents New Zealand Golf and is the chair. He's on board this morning. We've got retail and supply, which is recognised by Sam Sullivan. He's on board this morning. Ryan Brandenburg. But Ryan represents tourism, as I work with travel as well. Elizabeth has represented Elizabeth Whitten, who's also helping chair the meeting or manage the meeting as media. There's Spencer, who I'm not too sure whether Spencer has come in. Spencer is the head greenkeeper at Remuera, but is also the president of the manager of the Supers Association. Who have I missed out? PGA is represented, NZPGA is represented by Josh Longley, but today Josh is actually joined by Geoff Smart, who's been a long-time coach and is currently the events manager for the NZPGA. So a good representation of the industry. One thing to point out from all of you is trying to pull all these things together and keep the industry involved. We are all essentially volunteers. We all have full-time jobs, as you can see from that. But one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that all these different areas of the industry, people are kept up to date. Hence, we had an introductory one last week. And this one today is specifically talking about how we're going to play the game in level 2, what's happened operationally for members, for clubs, pro shops, as much as we can. Having said that, we should all be aware that level 2 is still only being talked about. There's some indications from the government today. And that whole charge from the industry has been led by Dean Murphy, who's the CEO of New Zealand Golf. Dean wasn't scheduled to be involved or as a speaker first up in this meeting. We'd asked Dave Mangan as the championship manager and Phil Aiken, who many of you know, long-time advocate of golf in New Zealand. But Dean has come along to first off give us an update on what's happening as he knows it from level 2 guidance from the government, albeit that announcements are still to come. So please welcome Dean. Dean, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Denise. Kia ora tātou, everyone. Welcome along and pleased to see you all here. I just thought it might be useful to start with to give you guys a brief overview on 2 things. One is the Community Resilience Fund you may have seen announced this morning from government. And the second is around golf at alert level 2. Thank you for your private message there, Mr. Goldstein. It's just your haircut that will make me laugh. So before I keep going, so Community Resilience Fund is announced this morning from Sport New Zealand. So for all of you who are involved in clubland or at a district level, there is a fund now that is available for you to apply for. So have a look. I have sent the details to every club in every district in New Zealand this morning. It's also available, the details are available on the Sport New Zealand website. The short summary is there is $15 million available for golf clubs and for regional sport organisations. Golf clubs can make an application for up to $1,000 per club, and regional sporting organisations can make an application up to $40,000 per organisation. The fund is to assist with the critical infrastructure and running costs that you may have during this lockdown period. It's not for people costs or for program costs, but it's to help with the utility running costs of your club or your regional organisation in the next couple of months. $15 million, and again, the limit is $1,000 per golf club and $40,000 per regional organisation. So I encourage you to have a look at that this morning. I have sent all the details out, but do check out the Sport New Zealand website for more details. The second thing I wanted to briefly chat about was golf at alert level 2. And firstly, just some timings on the key things that are happening with golf at alert level 2. You'll all be aware at 1 o'clock today, the Prime Minister will announce exactly what level 2 might look like from a broad perspective. Now, that is not going to go into specifics for a lot of things. It may touch on contact sport and sport in general, but it probably won't go into too much detail. It'll be broad level advice for what Alert Level 2 will look like as a country. We expect the sport and recreation guidelines and the golf part of that to be confirmed tomorrow. It may be Saturday, but I think it will be tomorrow that these will be confirmed, so we'll know exactly what golf at Alert Level 2 will look like. Obviously, you all know Cabinet meets on Monday and will decide when the country shall move to Alert Level 2. A lot of guidance I'm getting from government and the sports sector there is that it's likely to be Tuesday at midnight or Wednesday at midnight. It seems that it's mid next week when the move to Alert Level 2 will happen. Should happen in the next few days to change their mind. So we're probably looking at about a week from now as to when golf might move to Alert Level 2, and that's just my guess, my estimation. I think that's the most likely scenario, and that's what we should kind of be planning for now. So in terms of what we should be thinking about for golf at Alert Level 2, there's 4 key points that I think will apply regardless of exactly where the regulations land. The first thing I'd say is that golf, our assessment and what we've been told is that it will return to relative normality at Alert Level 2, and that most golf operations will be able to resume at Alert Level 2. The 4 key things that we've been asked to have a look at are, firstly, hygiene and sanitisation. The practices we've been using at Alert Level 3 and that many of you used as we moved into lockdown will remain for quite some time. So that's all common touch points, common surfaces, things like bunker rakes, flag sticks, those kind of things. The practice for hygiene practices and sanitisation practices will continue for quite some time. I believe flag sticks will be back in the holes, but it'll just be around asking members not to touch them and minimising any of those common touch points as much as possible. So that's the first thing, is hygiene and sanitisation. The second thing is distancing. Our assessment and our guess is that distancing will still be a feature of non-contact sport for quite some time, and that should be a metre distancing. So my understanding and my guess is that the regulations will say that all golfers and anyone who's on your site should keep a metre distancing from one another at all times. That will have particular relevance for operations such as pro shops, cafes, bars, restaurants, driving ranges, coaching activity, that kind of stuff. So 1 metre distancing is the kind of thing you'll have to bear in mind. The third thing that we're looking at is contact tracing. And the advice here is that contact tracing for anyone that enters a golf facility will be needed for the foreseeable future. I heard someone saying the other day that it will be for the rest of this year. I'm not sure if that's quite true or not, but contact tracing will need to be undertaken for quite some time. So that's the third thing to think about. And the fourth thing is around gatherings. Now, many of you will be aware that at Alert Level 2 on our way into lockdown, there was restrictions on gatherings for up to 100 people inside and 500 people outside. My sense is these numbers might come back a little bit, and they could shorten up, but there will certainly be restrictions on gatherings. Now, what that means for us running events or interclubs or competitions or tournaments or clubhouse gatherings is yet to be determined. But I think it's fair to say there will be restrictions on having people gathering together inside and outside. So just quickly, those 4 things, again, that the principles will really be made up of: hygiene and sanitisation, distancing of a metre, contact tracing, and gatherings. What we do believe, and what we're certain actually of, is that the handicap system will reopen at Alert Level 2. And there's a couple of things which Dave and Phil will talk to you about shortly around the rules of golf, if we have things like no bunker rakes and other bits and pieces out on the course. So there's certain rules connotation. And there's also scorecard protocol that will need to be in place, which Dave is going to talk to you shortly about a scorecard scoring app that we're about to release. So Denise, I might just pause there. The 2 things I wanted to update you on were just that community funding from Sport New Zealand, and secondly, how golf at Alert Level 2 is shaping up. I have seen some questions come through in the last couple of days around various operational things. I hope those guidelines help with that. There's been some specific questions about multi-tee starts. Even at alert level 3, we're suggesting they should be avoided, but only if they encourage gathering. So if people want to run multi-tee starts, of course you can, as long as it doesn't promote any gathering of people. So at alert level 2, that will certainly be the same principle. If you can do it without people really gathering together or people maintaining their distance, then multi-tee starts are fine. Competitions and events is another questions have come through on that. It's just going to be determined on the gathering limit. If it's 50 people outside and 10 people inside, it might make it a bit difficult, but my sense is it'll be bigger than that. But Denise, I'm quite happy to pause there, and maybe if you want to run any questions now, or if you want to roll through your presentations and scoop up questions at the end, I'm happy either way.
Fantastic, Dean, and a big thank you. I know a few people are thanking you, but I don't think people realise the work that you've done behind the scenes trying to get us and making sure that golf is foremost of the people down in Wellington. So thank you very much for that. I think we will keep rolling. I know that Dave and Phil have got some of these questions as well and have some comments. Dave, if you're happy to step in, please. For those that don't know, we've asked Dave Mangan, who is the General Manager of Championships. He represents New Zealand Golf at the RNA, has been involved in the new rules that came in last year, and is obviously all over the game. So Dave, please, can you pick up any of those points, some of the questions, and maybe talk a little bit about some of those questions as well?
Yep, no worries, Denise, and thanks for the opportunity, and hello everyone. Primarily what I wanted to do today was just talk about I guess the guidelines and which we will be sending out with regards to the rules around what level 2 looks like and how the rules of golf, because it's going to be a little bit more modified, but we just need to make sure that everyone in the sector is following the correct hygiene practices. So we do have to modify the rules of golf with that regard, and as Dean talked about, there's these touch points where we are going to have to follow good hygiene practices. So what we'll be doing once we're 100% sure what level 2 looks like and what some of those operational guidelines will be is send out these rules to everyone. So it'll be in a memo form and then a one-pager that you'll be able to put up on your golf club notice boards. So the main things that we're talking about here are the scorecards and scoring and how we deal with that, the flag sticks in the hole, bunkers, and any stakes that may be on your course. So we are expecting that the flag stick will be back in the hole, which is great. So we'll be able to open up the handicapping system and you'll be able to play with people from outside your bubble as long as you're following those social distancing practices. So when we talk about the scorecard, .golf are actually developing a scoring app for your phone device, which Matt is on the line here. So if he wants to jump in at any time, feel free to. But Matt showed us the application in our staff, New Zealand Golf staff Zoom this morning, and it is very, very good. And the key thing with it is it means that we're not going to be getting scorecards off the shop and things like that. We can do all the scoring on your phone. With regards to the rules, we obviously need to modify Rule 3.3, and there will be no longer be that requirement for your fellow competitor to sign your scorecard. So some sort of verbal attestment. So in the scoring app, you're able to put who you played with, 7-digit ID or their full name. So under the modified rules, that's enough. Again, if the clubs won't be using the scoring apps and they're using scorecards, if you're playing, so if I'm playing with Phil, I just write Phil's 7-digit ID on that, and that would be accepted under these modified rules, that is an attestment to my score. So that's the first one. The second one is with regard to the flag sticks and holding out. We expect it'll be our recommendation that that members or Grand Prix players don't touch the flag stick, and that's kept in the hole. And that would just be by policy rather than a rule of golf, but certainly be that you shouldn't be touching the flag stick. And again, with regards to the hole, just as we went in beforehand, just having that cup raised so it wouldn't be the normal 100 millimetres that the hole has to be set. It can be lower than that. And the modified rule there would be that a ball's deemed to be holed when any part of it is below the surface of the putting green, not that it has to be the whole ball under, just so it avoids that, having to go right deep into the hole. The other one, which is a recommendation, is that any ball that is within 30 centimetres of the hole, which is about that standard length of the putter grip, is deemed to be holed with the next stroke. We're talking about this for handicapping and for social competitions. So any ball within 30 centimetres, again, it just removes another need to putt that ball into the hole. So again, that's a guideline or a policy that clubs can introduce if they want. The bunker one was interesting. I think we came out with this preferred lies in bunkers prior to going into lockdown. I shared it with the RNA. They were pretty gobsmacked and didn't really think that we should be having a preferred lie in bunkers. But as they're opening up courses in the UK now, the RNA have changed those guidelines and are recommending to clubs that they have a preferred lie in a bunker. So talk to this about with Phil and the handicap system. This challenge of hitting the ball out of the bunker is still there with a preferred lie in the bunker. So we don't really think it's going to affect people's handicaps too much, or if you're just playing in the pro scramble, shouldn't affect things too much. I think if we're just asking people to play in bunkers where people are smoothing the bunkers with their feet, it's difficult for some people, and it's just not going to be as enjoyable when you're out there playing. So there'll be guidance on what that local rule looks like. That'll be coming out as well, just the wording if you want to put that up. But again, there'll be the one page that will simply state that there is preferred lies in bunkers. And just the final one, if you've got course marking stakes on your course, just that they should all be deemed to be immovable obstructions, which free relief is available from, not movable obstructions now. So you haven't got people going in, picking them out, moving them again, another touch point. So as I said, there'll be a full memo with that explaining why and having the principles behind why we are putting those recommendations in place, as well as a one-pager which you can put up on your club notice board. So Denise, that was all with regards to the rules of golf and how that's going to affect it. As I said, we saw the scoring app with .golf this morning, and I mean, that's going to be very, very helpful as well. And I know that the team there are very keen to get that developed by the time we go into level 2. So I know that you also had mentioned you wanted a quick overview of our tournaments. Would you like me to talk about that now, potentially?
I think the two things would be, what do you see with the New Zealand golf calendar? I mean, all given that we're still waiting for level 2, what's your best guesstimate at the moment, Dave, would be helpful. I know people are asking about the Charles event and all level of events. And the other ones, all those initiatives that you've talked about, is that maybe New Zealand golf initiatives, or is that things that are going to be happening worldwide? Could you comment on that as well, please?
Yeah, sure. We'll just firstly, with regards to the calendar, unfortunately, we did have to postpone, several events as we went into lockdown. 2 Charles Tours, the Women's Masters, Autumn Foursomes, which Denise, you've very quickly rescheduled to December, and South Island under-19s. We are keen to ensure that the 2 Charles Tour events, the Muriwai Open and Akarana Open, that were postponed, do go ahead in the spring, and we're talking to the managers, Andrew and Raj of those golf clubs, and we'll look at when a suitable time may be to do that. With regards to national events, our first one back is the age group championships, which may look slightly different as we incorporate a secondary schools component into it, because that was an event that was cancelled as well. Our events like our New Zealand Amateur at the Poverty Bay Golf Club, as long as we are in potentially level 1 by that stage and we can travel around the country, we see that as events that will go ahead. And the 3 Charles Tour events that we have, 4 later on in the year, obviously we will be talking with managers of those clubs. They have a $50,000 prize purse, so there is sponsorship money that needs to be raised. It'll be checking in with how those sponsors are and whether those events can still go ahead. But we feel it's very important. Our professional players have been, twiddling their fingers for a while now, and they'll be looking forward to getting out, and hopefully we can offer those Charles Tour events as a way for them to get playing again. One thing I will say is we do run interprovincial events, and our district associations around the country do have a lot of matches and events like that. They, like everyone, are struggling financially, and one of the things that we are doing is reviewing our district tournament landscape. So New Zealand Golf has got a small committee together with 5 members of district associations and myself, and we're just reviewing the spend that's there and just looking at the best way forward with those events that we run for them and we run with them. So we're just doing a little bit of work in the background there as well with those district tournaments. And sorry, Denise, the question about the initiatives, what was?
Oh, are these modified rules, Dave? Are they New Zealand Golf, or is this being adopted around the world and obviously sanctioned by the RNA and USGA?
Yeah, when we went into level 2, I shared these with them, but they're up for each country are able to modify their rules. The RNA have sent out what they believe should be, and ours mirrors that very closely. They always put at the bottom of that, though, that you need to check with your local handicapping authority to see if that's allowed. So that's why, you know, we make sure with Phil and with our guidelines there that scores can be handed in for handicapping under those rules, and in this instance they are able to be.
I know we're keen to go over to Phil as well and talk about the World Handicapping System and some of that, but something that occurs is the New Zealand Golf calendar and national events, or even a senior event within a district. Would you see those being conducted under the modified rules, or will we need to wait till the modified rules, we're back to the normal rules, that you can run a national competition?
Yeah, it's a good question, and no, we see these rules as being something that's in play to get the handicap system opened up again. We know that that's a big part of people's enjoyment of games when they play golf, and also so we can get club scrambles and pro scrambles going ahead. We wouldn't run a national championship under these rules, and you know, we wouldn't think that at this stage formal competition should be happening at clubs, but it will be up for them to decide if they think they need to start up club champs again. At this stage, until we really see what level 2 looks like, we wouldn't finalise that guidance, but these rules are for play to be done, so you can hand in your scores for handicapping and have, you know, casual competition at club, whether it be club scrambles, so long as those inside gathering guidelines are met by clubs. But with this, one of the neat things about the app is if the clubs have got, you know, the .golf system, then as soon as you put in that score on your scorecard, it will link up to a competition that the club's created. So Matt and the team have done some great work there.
If I could just, Richard Crowe, Manakarihi and Taranaki, just one question that sounds really good, the .golf scoring app, but for players without a smartphone, can a player who has the smartphone enter his fellow player's scorecard as well, using the correct ID, obviously, as well as his own score?
Matt, I might let Matt answer that one. I know he is here. I'll give him the chance to just unmute.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Dean and Dave. Sorry, who asked that question? Didn't quite catch that.
Sorry, Matt. Richard. Oh, sorry, Richard. I'll let you answer it again.
Richard Crowe, Manakarihi Golf Club in North Taranaki.
So the app is not a replacement for scorecards, and I guess that's a key thing to make. It's just something that's in addition. So, you know, it's there, it's available for people to use it if they like. Obviously, physical scorecards still have a place to play in this as well. So the app, though, if you are scoring, you can score for yourself and you can score for a partner, but as far as submitting it for handicapping is concerned, you're only submitting your own score. You're not necessarily submitting partners and other people's scores on their behalf. So they would, if they didn't have a smartphone or something like that, then they would be still just using the normal handicap, physical scorecard for handicapping.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I thought you were trying to do away with touching cards and all that sort of thing, but it doesn't quite work with people without the smartphone.
No, and as Dean mentioned in the message, this is just another supplement to try and avoid those touch points. But yeah, some people may have to fill out their own score on a scorecard and return that into the club.
Thank you, Dave. I think that's some interesting. I think as everyone, apart from all wanting to get a haircut, we all just want to go and play golf. So do you even have those things? Because yeah, exactly. I know there'll be other questions probably of Dave and how we can play, but let's move on if we can to Phil Aiken. Many of you know Phil obviously been involved in golf in New Zealand for a long time. Phil has been around the new world handicapping system. Some of that has some impact on what's happening at the moment. So please, Phil, if you'd like to give us a little update on that and how you see that happening over the next couple of months.
Yeah, thank you, Denise, and good morning, everybody. Great to have such a number gathered from all different parts of our industry. Firstly, I've got no problem with a haircut, Denise, so I'm not in any hurry. My son might be, actually, to get back to the hairdresser, but I'm okay. But what I'm looking forward to, and probably like a lot in the room, is getting back to the game that we enjoy so much, and a little bit of competitive golf. Yeah, as amateurs, as most of the room are, we do enjoy a game. One of the things that I am very much looking forward to is the fact that when we do go back, we are under the new World Handicap system. Now, this is something that's been developed through consultation and research over probably 6 or 7 years now. And it's the merging of what was 6 World Handicap systems and taking the best of each system, putting it together into what is now, we refer to as WHS. Very quickly, I do think that, thanks to handicapping, we've got the greatest game that there is, and everybody in this room can play in a group, and we can have an equitable competition. And I think the outcome through WHS is that it's going to be more accurate and more equitable than any system that we've used before or leading up to now. So that's something to look forward to. We've had the softest launch ever, 14 April. Matt and his team know at .golf, huge amount of development technology-wise. Incredible to think that in a matter of only a couple of hours, millions and millions of scores were recalculated under the new formulas, and we all got up on the 15th of April and we were able to have a look at what our new WHS handicap was. And in fact, before that, we'd been running a parallel, or .golf had been running a parallel for us for a month, showing our handicap records with the result of our what was our current handicap index compared to our WHS handicap index. And that provided a little bit of communication for us, justifying changes here and there. And certainly, through all of this and our build-up, there's been a big education process. So through Dean's partner updates monthly, we've passed on information of how WHS will work in New Zealand and what the key changes will be. We've provided a poster to the golf clubs. We've sent out an EDM to the members. Not too long ago, we sent a checklist to the golf clubs themselves and the things that they should have in place for when golf resumes. And that's all going to get tested, hopefully, under Alert Level 2. Probably the big message for golf clubs, we now will be using a playing handicap. We need the new playing handicap charts to be on display and downloaded, posted at your golf club. Certainly a lot easier for those using the .golf scorecard printing utility, but there are many golf clubs who don't have that, and displaying the new playing handicap charts is going to be important. Now, just I think just a little bit on the key changes themselves. Firstly, there's the formula. The formula is what creates our handicap index. And for a lot of us, we're really fortunate that the system really is based on what we've been using in the past with some minor adjustments. We used to be the best 10 of your most recent 20 scores. It's now reduced to 8. So that has a small impact. We've probably found that for most golfers, with their recalculation, they have dropped slightly with their handicap index. For your new golfers at golf clubs, 54 holes of golf recorded will give you an official handicap index. That's down from 90 holes, so very positive for new players to the game. And there's also, at the other side of the game, as we're retaining our veteran members, an official handicap index can go out to 54.0 for both genders. That's another good thing for our game. And it doesn't mean that in your competitions you need to stick with those particular handicaps. You might have a ceiling on those who qualify for particular events, and it might be 18, 24, or 36, depending on the format of your tournament itself. There may be a few in the room who have had an R beside their index at some stage. That is no longer, we don't have any of those suffixes that will follow a handicap index, but there is a very cool calculation for exceptional play that can be applied. And it can be a reduction of 1 or 2 depending on how the performance is, and they can accumulate as well over time. And the other thing at the other side of the game is outward movement. For the first time ever, we have in our system, we have a control on outward movement. We haven't had that before. There's a limitation, there's a cap that clicks in, and we all have, and you would have seen it in your WHS record, we've all got a low index illustrated, which looks back over your record over the last 365 days, identifying your low, and then from there, that controls our outward movement. It's going to be pretty hard for our members to determine round by round what's going to happen with their index based on some of those new functions. And the other thing is, and probably one we've been looking for our New Zealand conditions for a number of years, is what is called PCC, which is playing conditions calculation. So every night there will be a review of the cards that have been entered. And quite possibly based on the conditions of the day, which could be weather related, could be course related, if there's perhaps been, say, coring of recent times, weather, or even course setup, where the course has been, the greens are a little bit quicker, the pins are a little bit tougher. So analysis every day, and there could be an adjustment to the score that's gone in, reflecting the challenge of the day. Now that's a good thing. You'll all know we've been stuck with one course rating representing golf for 365 days of the year. Now that's a movement. Basically it's a course rating being reduced by 1 or going out by 3, and that's represented in your final handicap differential from that round played. So we certainly see that as a really good addition to the whole formula. And then of course the one that's going to prepare us all or have us as up to date as possible is daily handicapping. Every night there's going to be the recalculation of our handicap index. That's how we also look at the PCC. We strongly recommend that the clubs try and find a process, particularly the smaller clubs, of regular inputting of scorecards, and so that we're all playing on our most up-to-date handicap, and competition can be as equitable as possible. Now, I'm sure there'll be a few questions around that, but I'll just finish off with one of the big changes I think for our members will be the new way that we calculate our playing handicap. Up until now, under the slope system, each time you go and play, depending on what the slope number is, it could be a low 100 or it could be a high 130, our handicap was changing accordingly. We still have that happening under WHS, but with one extra calculation. And this is the one that's going to probably raise questions amongst your membership. And it's the look at course rating minus par. And I've had quite a large amount of communication to do with this particular part of the game of the handicap calculation. And if you've got a course where the course rating is lower than the par, then your members' playing handicaps will go down for that particular day or competition. However, if you're playing the back tees, the course rating is higher, you're going to receive more shots to your playing handicap. There's real advantages in this. You can run a competition with the men playing from 3 different sets of tees, the women from 2 if necessary, and run one competition. It makes it completely equitable. There's no extra boxes to tick in the old .golf tournament system to make sure that you've got the gender playing the higher course rating, which 99% of the time was the women, getting the extra strokes that they deserve. It's all done in the playing handicap. And it does mean at the end of the day that 36 Stableford points, that being the most common competition that we play, actually truly represents playing to your handicap. I had a query a few days ago, a member who said, I can't play to this, I've dropped by 3 shots. Well, at that particular club, the par is 73, the course rating is 69.8. Previously, 39 points truly represented playing to your handicap at that particular venue, and kind of starts to help explain why a lot of clubs, they were saying you need to score 45, 46 48 points on occasion to win the club scramble. So that's the biggest change that will affect the members, the one that you'll get the most questions about. We have information about that on our website. I should have said that at the start. You can go to our homepage, you can click on the WHS icon, or go to golf.co.nz /WHS, and you will find all the information, videos, and text that we've prepared for you to help with this change. The other thing you'll find there is the new rules of handicapping. Fairly meaty document, but it'll cover the bit about the formula, the playing handicap, etc. And backing all of this up, obviously, is our technology. Every golf club has the access to .golf. They can download playing handicaps. Most clubs, I'm sure, have done that by now. You do need to make sure you've got your updated playing handicap charts, because they are using the course rating minus par calculation in the playing formulas for your members. So make sure that's done by next Tuesday. Like I say, though, we have emailed each member. Our EDM database reaches close to 65,000, I believe. We've sent that same email as a copy to all golf clubs so that those who don't receive that can get a copy. But it's exciting times. And like I say, you know, handicapping, we're really fortunate in our sport that we have a method of allowing competition with all of us to be equitable. It still will remain the most common clubhouse debate, I'm sure, which provides us good debate over a beer at the end of a game. But this one, I do believe there's so many good things about this. I'm really looking forward to it being completely tested. As I said, we've had the softest launch in the world, but there's over 40 countries using the system now. It's been absolutely well tested. The playing handicap side of things, for a start, has been happening in Europe for 20 years. The USA have adopted it. Golf Australia have adopted it. We've taken it on board. But that's the one thing I do for our 100,000 golfers with handicaps. That's the one they'll be a little bit confused about from day one, the fact that they're getting less strokes in their matches. But it's across for the board for everybody playing on those sets of tees. So
Phil, I think we might, I'm just looking at the time, and we would like to hear from Geoff. There's a few questions coming. My suggestion is that we do ask Geoff, who is looking after the events in the program for the NZPGA, to just talk about the implications for his schedule, which would give you and Dave a little chance just to have a look at those questions. There's a few ones coming in through the chat line, and then we'll come back to you guys to answer those on the scorecards and the handicapping. Is that okay? All right, Geoff, let's hear what the NZPGA is doing with their schedule in the next couple of months, assuming we're going to level 2 and some of those expectations as Dave outlined.
Thanks, Denise, and welcome to everybody. Well, as everybody listening in, everybody's really keen to get out and play some golf, and none more than our golf professionals. So during the time since lockdown, I've been communicating with the clubs that have organised pro-ams. Our schedule events don't commence until the 23rd of September, so hopefully we'll be back in a near normal state by then. I'm not too sure what the expectation is for the length that will be in level 2. But to run professional events, then obviously there has to be, the main things that I'm looking at are travel restrictions. And I don't know where we are with that. We'll probably find out more on that today. But to run an event, we'll have to be there'll have to be more free travel restrictions for players to get to venues. Won't be able to operate events under the current rules, the way they look like being. So, but by September we should be all set to go. All the clubs, all the sponsors seem to be on board. In fact, there seems more excitement about events, so I'm looking forward to to a busy second half of the year, and working with Dave and Phil and New Zealand Golf, fitting in the Charles Tour events that need to be put in. We've also had interest in running new Pro-Am events. So yeah, it's going to be a busy time traveling through.
What's the first ones off the rank in September, Geoff? What is that schedule?
Events in the South Island. We start with Nelson on the 23rd, and then Marlborough, 24th, Kaikoura, which is they're desperately looking out for some activity down there. They've been hit very hard. They had a shocking time through the earthquake. Just only had the road reopened, and now this. So their whole community's been hit really hard over the last 5 or 6 years. So looking forward to getting down there and helping them out, taking some people down there to spend some money. Yeah, so through to Kaikoura, and then hopefully through to the first Charles Tour event, which will be the Pegasus DVS on the 1st to the 4th of October. So that'll be our start, and hopefully we'll be in the conditions that will allow those events to be played as professional events. So we're
Fantastic.
all positive.
And that's good. And I think some of those questions around retail and the shops and how they can work and distancing and some of those, the 4 criteria that Dean set out, will be of interest to your guys as well, the PGA guys, particularly in our next session, which we'll talk about shortly. But I'll flick back to Dave now, if I can. Dave, have you had a chance to have a look at some of those questions, you and Phil? Is there any more that you could add, given those questions that have come in, please?
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, sorry, I was answering a few questions, but for some reason, as you might all see on my face, I'm Dean Murphy now, so that was me to some of you. Yeah, Phil, I'll get Phil to talk to the ones, Phil, you might have seen them. They're just about printing scorecards the day before from Andrew there, so I'll let Phil talk to those.
Okay, and I think, thanks, Matt. Matt was replying to a few of those. I think Merle had the query about the display of charts. I think it's sort of a nice practice, if you can, just to get your charts on display, whether you just have internationals or visiting members who would like to be able to convert their index to a playing handicap. And particularly next week when they don't want to be touching a scorecard, it's just good practice, I think, to have those charts up. As far as getting your scores in, there will be days, sure, where you return at the smaller club a scorecard into a box. The thing that we ask is that they're entered as soon as possible, on the day, or as soon as possible after. It's no great deal if you cannot get the scorecard entered that day. We actually have a procedure for the smaller clubs, which you'll find online for this new world of live handicapping. In Australia, it's interesting, they don't provide any compromise, but we do have a guide there of how we think live handicapping could operate for the smaller club in running their competitions. Scorecard printing, now that certainly was a hot topic when we were leading up, and one that I know .golf spent a lot of time doing some testing on. We did have information saying that a lot of our clubs, whether it be shotgun starts or early morning starts, did like to pre-print scorecards. Does create the possibility of some confusion for our members. I mean, as the first point of call, I would strongly recommend that scorecards are printed on the day, but I will accept that that's at times not possible. You can freeze handicaps as of a certain date. I think I saw a message there about a multi-event tournament played over a number of days. You can freeze your handicap for that period and that competition. But as far as the technology and pre-printing cards the day before, yes, you can still do that. Perhaps now, Matt, you just want to confirm how that can be done within your .golf system?
Yeah, absolutely. So that can still be done, and ultimately it's still up to the clubs as to, when they run competitions, if they're wanting to freeze handicaps, if they're wanting to play off the daily handicaps, the the playing handicaps for each day. That's ultimately still the call of each club to make that decision for competition purposes. And this could, the introduction of WHS could change some habits that we're quite used to at the moment, which is, we're used to a fixed handicap that's fixed for 2 weeks and playing off that same handicap. Whether that changes over time to getting used to having a different handicap for different rounds of tournaments, we'll see over time whether that changes or not. But there is still the option to freeze handicaps there for multi-round events, or if they want to play off their changed playing handicap for each day, that's also an option. So both options available.
Okay, thank you guys. There were some questions that came in from Kim Badger from Wanaka, and I think most of those, Kim, I know you're online. I think that all does come into the points that Dean raised earlier, and probably more of that's going to be answered today when we get more detail from the government. So if there's anything specific there that you don't think is answered and is not going to be answered by the government, and in fact to anybody, if you've got other questions, when you got your confirmation of registration, you saw an email there, so by all means, if there's other questions that come after the session, email it through to Chairman at NZGIC, and Carl will pass that on to the respective person and we can answer it that way. I think also, Richard, you had some questions, Richard Crowe from New Plymouth. Dean is coming back to you on that one, I believe. And I think we're all waiting, obviously, to see whether these indications that Dean gave for the various points that we have to do, such as relativity, distancing, contact tracing, etc., how they're going to be coming in today. So we were trying to keep these sessions to 45 minutes. We're a little bit past that. I want to thank again those people that have presented today. Please, if you've got more questions, put a couple of notes in your diary, everyone, if you would. It's been fantastic. We had over 120 people registered to this, but our next one from NZGIC will be the 19th of May. That's a Tuesday. Every time we will do these at 10:15. We're going to be looking that day at retail supply, that whole area, what implications there are for PGA professional shops, might even touch on some of that social distancing within the clubhouse. That will be led by Josh Longley from the NZPGA with Sam Sullivan, who's representing retail, and we're hoping to have someone from Retail New Zealand on that day as well. And then also put in your diaries the 28th of May. We want to tackle that topic of tourism, travel. There will be myself with Ryan Brandenburg, and we're hoping for a guest speaker to be on that one as well. So there's a couple there, and within the next week or two, we're hoping to put up a schedule for June of what our indicated topics would be. But there's a invite there from Sam. Make sure you do go into either the NZGIC website or the NZGIC Facebook. Be a liker of that to keep up to date with these. And as I say, if you've got further questions, please go back through to the chairman at nzgic.co.nz if it wasn't answered today. There is a lot going to be answered today, we think, by the government. So if you've got other questions that you would like to refer, send them through to Carl and we'll pass them on. But we're over our 45 minutes. Thanks, everybody. Hope you found it a good session, and look forward to chatting with you on the 19th of May, if not earlier. Again, thank you to Dean, Dave, Phil, and Geoff, and Matt, of course. Thank you.
Thanks very much.